Oatmeal always makes me think apocalypse. Not the kind of apocalypse I'm actually likely to witness, spread through droplets so small they can't be seen by the naked eye, by germs so tiny that they might as well be science fiction to most people. And not the kind we thought we were getting when the vampires showed up a few years ago. Though something weird happened in Dallas recently, so the vampires have been hiding out for the last several months. No one knows why for sure, but I know that the guys in the ER are thankful for the drop in neck traumas and exsanguination victims. And I was glad the hospital had a small isolation ward specially created to watch ex-sang victims overnight, just to be sure they didn't turn. It made my job as a consultant for the CDC easier. No, when I'm confronted with the prospect of oatmeal, I begin to think how useful it would be in a world where scavenging became the norm. Like one of those zombie movies, where people slide through grocery stores throwing food items into baskets, racing to gather as much as they can before the shambling horde attacks. I'm just saying. I tucked a few strands of dark hair that had escaped my bun up under my scrub hat. When the inevitable zombie apocalypse hits, go for the oatmeal. It's lightweight and nutritious, can be eaten alone or used to make easy-to-carry cakes, can even be eaten uncooked. It's pretty much the perfect post-apocalyptic food. That assumes, Dr. Will Manning said as we scrubbed in at the sinks of the small anteroom that led into the isolation unit, that either there is someone out there doing all the hard work of growing and then milling it, or whatever it is you do to oats that turns them into oatmeal, or that there are a few enough people around that the stores are still chock full of oatmeal packets, just ripe for the picking. He wrapped the paper gown ties around behind him, crisscrossing them around his waist and tying them in the front. "You're missing the point," I said, pulling a pair of sterile blue non-latex gloves out of the dispenser on the wall and snapping them on one at a time, checking to make sure they covered the wrists on the sleeves of my own white paper gown. "So what is the point?" He reached around me for his gloves. "That it's important to pay attention to how we can use the things around us." My voice grew muffled as I tied on a surgical mask. "So let me get this straight." With his hip, he bumped the button that opened the door into the unit. "You're in a hospital full of medical equipment." He gestured in a circle over his head, taking in all of Houston General. "And you're obsessing over the post-apocalyptic value of oatmeal?" I narrowed my eyes, staring at him hard as I nodded. "I bet they've got a ton of it over in the cafeteria. We'd be set for life." He snorted and shook his head as he moved through the door and toward the computer on a stand just inside. I followed him, consciously switching over to professional mode. "Okay," I said. "Go over it again. What is it you've got here?" Will shook his head. "I'm telling you, it's the weirdest damn thing I've ever seen. It's like the poor kids have malaria and dengue fever at the same time, but not exactly. As soon as we knew what we had on our hands, we put him into contact isolation and moved him into the ex-sang hall." "But you didn't go public." "Thanks for that. It makes my job easier," I said. Will shrugged. "Ours too. Whenever there's an outbreak of any kind, the ER gets overrun with people assuming they have it." He logged into the computer and pulled up a file. "I've seen the slides," I said, reaching past him and clicking through to the images he'd sent to me the day before. Viral and parasitic at the same time. The slides flickered past. First, the images from the electron microscope of the virus, bumpy and globular. Then the parasites, bigger and more easily imaged, the stain making them look like purple rings inside the blood cells. "As far as we can tell, it's exactly like the outbreak 20 years ago," Will said. "Our diagnostic equipment is better now, and we still can't figure out if we're looking at a primary and secondary infection or if it's all the same damn thing." I remember it. My voice was quiet. "You do?" Will asked, startled. "I grew up here, remember? I was a child the last time it came through. The school shut down for 2 weeks. My grandmother had just come from the Philippines to live with us, and she used to say that Filipino children were immune. No one in my neighborhood got it, so it was just some weird thing that happened to the white kids. She also used to say it was the aswang, the night monster, coming to punish the bad children. But I didn't mention that. Boogeyman stories designed to keep Filipino children in line wouldn't save anyone here." With a shrug, I glanced one last time at the slides. Let's go see the patient.